Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon, implementing the new WA P-6 mathematics curriculum with Oxford. Thank you all for joining us at the end of what I'm sure is a really busy day. I was lucky enough to be over in WA last week and for the first week back to school, and it was great to see everybody getting stuck in and all the students back in their classrooms. So good luck for the rest of term 3. So we are here today to talk about the new curriculum and our Oxford Maths program. But before we start, I'd just like to do an acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the many lands on which we meet today, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. And we know that many of you will be on different First Nations lands. I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri country in Melbourne, and I also have my colleagues Louise and Graham who are in Perth, which is Whadjuk Noongar country, I think. I hope I've got that pronunciation correct. So my name's Emma Short, and I'm the Primary Maths Portfolio Manager at Oxford, based here in Melbourne, as I said. And Louise and Graham are my colleagues in WA. Louise Fedetta is our consultant for south of the river, and Graham Jordan is our consultant for north of the river. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. During the webinar, you can put questions into our Q&A, and we'll keep an eye on those. We'll try and answer some as we go, and others we might come back to at the end of the presentation. And we also have a couple of handouts available for you. One is a curriculum guide for the new WA Maths curriculum, just a supporting brochure with some information. And the other one is an evaluation pack for our Oxford Maths program for Western Australia. So this afternoon, we're going to just give you a bit of a summary of the changes to the WA curriculum coming next year. And an introduction to the Oxford Maths approach, and showing you how we incorporate that curriculum change in our program. And we'll have a look at the teacher resources for the program, and also some digital resources for the program. And then hopefully we'll have some time at the end for questions and answers. So we'll start with the new Western Australian curriculum for mathematics. As you probably all know, 2025 is a year of familiarisation, and implementation is required next year, so 2026. And the new mathematics curriculum has been adapted from the current Western Australian curriculum, and also from the New South Wales curriculum, or NESA syllabus, and the Australian curriculum version 9. So there's some key changes. Content has been reorganised to show a developmental progression across the year levels. Examples have been added also to clarify content descriptions, but it's important to note that these examples are supportive, but they're not mandated. The substrands have been reorganised, renamed, and some new content has been added across all year levels. And the content descriptions also include the proficiencies of understanding, reasoning, fluency, and problem solving. So they're embedded into the content. And of course, the Western Australian achievement standards have also been amended. So to give you a little bit of a better idea of what that looks like, we've just borrowed this great infographic from the SCASA website, which is a really great source of information for you. And I really encourage you all to jump on and have a look. It's got plenty of information about the curriculum change and the new curriculum. So this one really clearly shows how the strands have been reorganised and how some renaming has also taken place. So you can see that number and place values been renamed and reorganised under understanding number and understanding equalities and inequalities. Fractions and decimals has also been reorganised to fit under understanding number. Calculating with number is a new substrand, and that incorporates some existing content from number and place value and fractions and decimals too. And there's also some new modelling strands. You'll see up the top right there, there's modelling with number in the earlier years, and then also modelling with measurement and geometry from years 3 to 6. So the modelling strands are really great, and of course they allow for quite a lot of real life application of skills and understandings. And as Louise will show you a bit later, that's really in sync with our Oxford Maths program. If we drill down a little bit further, again, you can see quite a lot of detailed information on the SCASA website. This will show you a list of changes, a list of new content, a list of how things have been reorganised and where some topics or concepts might have moved from one year level to another. So just for example, financial literacy is now included across pre-primary to year 6. There's a new probability topic in pre-primary. Some line graphs have been added in years 5 and 6. And then there's small changes across years P to 4, largely in the measurement topics, but also some number and fractions topics. Year 4 also has some new 2-digit multiplication, and other topics have moved around. So for example, odd and even numbers has moved, I think it's out of year 3 into year 4, or that could be out of year 4 further on, sorry. And a few other topics are no longer there. An example is temperature. However, having said that, in our Oxford Maths program, we'll often offer you more than what is required. So we may keep temperature as a topic where we feel that that's really useful, for example, for exploring negative numbers and that kind of thing. So you will see in our Oxford Maths program that we often go a little bit beyond the curriculum and give you quite a good choice of content there. So the achievement standards are also changing, as I said. There is some reference to students demonstrating the behaviours of the proficiencies in conjunction with year level content, which I just mentioned. There's reference to selecting and using year level content to model and represent and solve real world situations. And there's also some language changes. So probably the main one you'll notice is the change from at standard to by the end of the year. And that reflects, the fact that the curriculum content is taught right over the course of the year. Now, the new achievement standards at the moment are listed as provisional, so we'll continue to monitor changes, and we will provide some reference documents on Oxford Owl when we have the final information on the achievement standards. Looking a little bit closer at the language of the Western Australian curriculum, you'll see I've just got an example there to show, the phase, the strand, the substrand, year level content description, and those examples that I mentioned earlier, which are not mandatory. So all this is really clearly set out on the SCASA website and in the downloadables that you can get when you're familiarising yourself with the curriculum. And we tried to reflect the language of the new curriculum in our Oxford Maths program. This is just a mock-up at the moment, but you'll see that we on our contents pages, we include the year level, and then we have our sort of strand. We have units grouped together under the strands. You'll see their number and algebra, measurement and geometry, and probability and statistics. And then below that, in our unit names, we also reflect the names of some of those substrands, such as understanding number, patterns and relationships, calculating with number, and so forth. So when you're working through the Oxford Maths program, this language will be really supportive for you and reflect, everything that's in the new curriculum. We'll provide you with some scope and sequence documents to support you as you work through the changes. We always provide a curriculum links document that starts with the contents pages of the book, or starts with our list of topics, and then shows you the curriculum links sort of to the right-hand side for each topic. But we're also going to supply what I call a reverse curriculum planner, where we'll actually start with the curriculum strand, substrand, concept on the left-hand side, and then we'll show everywhere in our program where that link occurs. So it just means that if you wanted to search by curriculum rather than contents from our program, you can do that too. And in term 4, SCARS are going to be adding codes to the curriculum outcomes as well. So we won't finalise that second document until term 4 when we have the codes, but it'll mean that you have a really easy way to search our program for curriculum links. So I'm going to hand over now to Louise Fedetta to talk you through elements of the Oxford Maths program. I'll just turn off my camera now, and Louise, over to you.
Thanks, Emma. Okay, so the Oxford Maths program, as you would expect, is a whole school mathematics program that's grounded in evidence-based practice. And it is now used by some 300,000 students across Australia and New Zealand, and quite a large chunk of those are actually here in WA. It is a topic-based approach that supports the sequential acquisition of mathematical skills, and it provides comprehensive curriculum-aligned planning support. It does provide extensive support for differentiation. So it ensures that we support students at their point of need so that every student can experience success. And there are actually 3 pathways through the program. So within each year level, there are 3 pathways. So students are both above level, on level, and below level. And these are informed by the pre-assessment, which allows you to identify gaps in student knowledge and inform groupings. And there are suggested teaching pathways for each group in the teaching notes, providing valuable planning support. And this quote from Graham and Colligan makes an important point that planning to enable all students to reach the same learning goal by varied means if necessary is the fundamental point of differentiation. The program also incorporates Oxford Maths Ready, which uses a developmental approach to help bridge gaps in student knowledge. And it is ideally used to prime students that need support before they join the rest of the class and starting a new topic. And it helps teachers identify potential misconceptions and build prerequisite skills to understand a topic. And there are Oxford Maths Ready notes in every single topic embedded in the Oxford OWL teaching resources. We also provide comprehensive support for explicit teaching, and that support follows a gradual release of responsibility model, so the whole I do, we do, you do. It includes both whole class and material for guided and independent instruction. There's plenty of material for more sort of hands-on activities, as well as practice and consolidation of learning both in the books and online. It provides open-ended questions and problem-solving activities to ensure real-world application of learning. And I thought this quote here from the Australian Education Research Organisation was interesting. They looked at some 328 studies looking at explicit instruction and found that explicit instruction is a very efficient strategy for helping students learn because it suits how the brain processes, stores, and retrieves information. So the Oxford Maths student books obviously provide support from years pre-primary to year 6. They are organised by topic, and although the suggested term planners that we provide will allow you to look at topics across each of those 3 strands across the term. And the student book pages, each topic or each unit starts with a modelled example, and then there is material for both guided, independent and extended practice, just reflecting that gradual release of responsibility model. And of course, additional support for that is embedded in the teaching notes for every single topic. In the back of the books, there's also a glossary for student reference, and just ensuring that we have a consistent language of maths across the program. We also package an assessment booklet with the student books. So these provide both pre and post assessment for every single topic. Your pre-assessment looks at material from both the year of interest and prior year's learning to help identify gaps in student learning and inform those 3 groupings that I mentioned before. And then the post-assessment also looks at the year of interest, plus there are stretch questions as well. And we do provide a grading guide as well, just to ensure that you're all grading them the same way and have a consistency in terms of how you grade those tests. And the assessment booklet is also accompanied by a digital form of the assessment. So you've got the option of either the printed assessment or an online assessment. The beauty of the online assessment is that it auto grades. So that's a nice time-saving feature for you. And we actually put different questions in the online assessment. So you've got some additional kind of depth of material there as well. But if you're unable to use the digital assessment, perhaps you might not have sufficient devices in your classroom, you're not disadvantaged in any way. We do provide you with the paper version of the test as well. So we do provide planning support for this program. There are both term planners, a week-by-week plan, and you can see on the right-hand side there a draft of the New Year 4 plan for WA. These are a 9-week plan, and you can see that we're able to look at topics across each of the 3 strands as the term progresses. They are purely a suggestion though, and we do make them available in a Word document so that you can edit them as needed. And then on the left there, you can see an example of a composite planner. This one's not yet been updated for our new curriculum, but I just wanted to show you the composite plans. If you have a mixed class, these have been so useful just in terms of organising the 2-year levels worth of material. So as much as possible, you're teaching the same topic to all students. And really the aim of these is just to save you some time in terms of putting them together. Okay, so just a quick overview here of the Oxford Maths Teacher Dashboard. So we aim to put a range of resources at your fingertips to save you time kind of planning and preparing. So in addition to the term planners and also the curriculum scope and sequence that Emma mentioned, there are learning sequence documents, and they are a suggested guide for differentiation and to assist you with planning classes and groupings. There's also teacher notes for every single topic. There's additional activity worksheets provided, and those are particularly useful for students that need extension, and also Blackline Masters and sort of templates for various hands-on activities are provided. There's also mastery tasks, which provide for real-world application of concepts and often have links to other learning areas, so for instance science or HASS, allowing students to make those connections. There's also the pre and post tests that I mentioned, the digital versions, and are also practice quizzes. So for every single topic, there are 3 quizzes at different levels of difficulty as well. There's also a small collection of videos. These are for your reference. They often look at sort of potential difficulties that students can run into and giving you some tips and strategies to address that. There's also a suite of digital interactives for every single topic, 1 per topic. And these are ideally used to help introduce a topic as part of the whole class introduction of a topic, and can also be useful for review, and you can assign them to students as well. We also add all the answers into the Oxford Maths Teacher Dashboard. There's also ClickView videos. So if your if your school has a ClickView subscription, you have a collection of those that you can access and also assign to students. The Oxford Maths Ready notes that I also mentioned, and also you'll be able to access all your reports in the dashboard as well, so all of the results of assessments and quizzes. Oops, I've gone too far. Let me go back. There we go, Oxford Maths Student Dashboards. So yeah, you do have the option to set up a student dashboard access, so that allows you to set up student logins and assign resources. And again, it is an optional part of the program if you're unable to, if you don't have sufficient devices or a reliable internet connection, you won't be disadvantaged if you can't use this in your school. But you can assign the assessments, the quizzes, the interactives. Students can also access a digital glossary or a maths dictionary if you like. You can assign the ClickView videos and any of the mastery tasks and worksheets as well. Students can also access an ebook of the student book, but it is for reference only. It's not printable. And of course, you can then see all the results on your dashboard when you log in. Okay, so just a little snapshot here of the Oxford Maths Teacher Dashboard. So you can see there that you can navigate between the topic resources. You can view all the work that you've assigned to your students. And on the right-hand side there, the reports tab as well. And we do set you up with access to all the year levels that your school has purchased, so all teachers can access resources across different levels to support differentiation. Okay, and we also supply the ebook of the student book for your reference, and also so that you can project this material on an interactive whiteboard as part of your lesson, allowing you to work through the guided practice section with your students. And it is provided for your reference. The student book is not printable. And also there are a couple of ways to navigate to the topic resources, either via the table of contents in the resource section or via the read tab on the home page, where you can view all the resources that accompany a topic on the left of the book. There you can see in that little screen grab the unit of work in the book and the resources on the left-hand side. You have the option to assign resources to students. So as I mentioned before, that includes pre-test, post-test quizzes, digital interactives and more. And when assigning tests and quizzes, you can select the time frame for when you want that material completed. And you can also monitor student results, and you can see how many have completed the assessment. So you can see there in the image, the green highlighted material numbers there indicate the number of students that have completed that assignment, and in red the number that have yet to complete that particular assignment. And you can also view reports. So the student results for tests and quizzes are viewed here, and you can see in the image on the left where we're looking at Unit 4.1 fractions, the pre-test results appear on the left-hand side. So students have completed the pre-test, they've auto-graded, and then you can view the assessments. And if they've been completed online here, then you will be able to see the content of the assessments and which questions students got right and wrong. And you can see there next to the pre-test also the post-test results that the students have completed once they've finished the topic. Also, you can open up this topic a little bit more. So if I were to click on the 4.1 fractions, it will expand and you would see the image on the right, which also now includes the quizzes for this particular fractions topic. So in that image, you've got the pre-test results. The three columns in the middle are the quiz results. We've got 3 different quizzes at different levels of difficulty, and also post-test results there. You do also have the ability to export test results if you wish. They export into a CSV file, and of course you can use the filter on the left there to look at different ability groupings as well. Okay, I'll now hand over to my colleague Graham, who's going to walk you through some of these resources on Oxford OWL.
Thank you, Louise. So in this next part of our session, we'll take a little bit of a tour of what the teacher and the student dashboards look like. You can see here that I'm demonstrating from our New South Wales platform. The only reason being is we're still developing the WA site. So we're using the New South Wales, which is currently active this year, just so that you can see what the functionality will look like, and our WA experience will replicate what you're going to see here today. So we're looking here at the home page, which is the first tile that highlights when we come into Oxford OWL. This just gives you the summary of those resources Louise was talking about, that you can see when you log into your dashboard. These will be all the supporting tools that you'll have available to you. Resources being the area that you would access your term planners, assessment, grading guides, and all of your different curriculum links and those sorts of things. assigned work where you'll be able to view all of the assignments that you've made that Louise just mentioned, and then the reports area where you'll be able to see the tracking of all of your pre-tests, quizzes and post-tests. Just on the left here, we've got the download option here. So this is just so that if you don't have internet access, you can view the ebook version of the student book offline. So you have that functionality there. But to access the student book, we would just jump in hitting read. And this will take us into the contents page of our student book. And you can see here that we can simply open up a unit of work and it will expand where we can then load a topic that we're going to teach to. So once we've loaded up the topic, you'll see on the right-hand side that the ebook reader appears. That's what can be projected on your front of class screen. We can load up the resources that go with this topic by clicking the resources tile. And here we have access to everything that we're going to need to teach this topic of work. So this is going to include your pre-tests, your quizzes, your Blackline Masters, extension sheets, the click view tile, the maths ready for your additional support, interactives, all of the different things you'll need to teach the lesson. We can pop that out of the way and look quickly at the e-reader that we would see when we're in our classroom. And we've got two ways we can view this. We can view it in a single page view or a double page view. So this can be toggled by this tile here. So we can view one page at a time. We've also got our zoom tools if we want to be able to enlarge that. But of course, there are those instances where we want to be able to pull 2 pages up together and look at those side by side as well. So you've got the option to do both. Various range of little features that you've got here in the e-reader. Aside from the enlarge, you can turn pages with these tabs here, of course. We've got the little dictionary tool. So this is our handy little Oxford Concise Dictionary. That will bring up a dictionary pane. You can type in any word and it will bring up the Concise Dictionary definition. But alongside that, you can also highlight words within the book and take that straight to the dictionary and it'll pull up the definition for you. And additionally, those highlighted words, you can actually create those into notes, add text to those as well, just for a bit of extra support if you needed that. And additionally, you can bookmark pages within the book as well. So if we wanted to select a page and bookmark that, we've got the option of capturing those pages to come back to quickly. And you can type notes that go alongside those, whether that be for planning or whether that be anecdotal records that you're taking during a lesson. So just a couple of little helpful tools that you've got available in that e-reader when you're using that with your class. And then we can just pop those resources back up on the screen. And now we can see all of the resources that we have available to us for this topic. Now, if we were referring to our term planner, as Louise mentioned, we have term planners for single year levels, but also for composite classes. We're looking at a year 3 book today. So you would actually have a year 3 planner. You would also have a year 2-3 planner and a year 3-4 planner. So you're covering off all of those different options, depending on how your class is configured. Obviously, if you've got that split class, it's going to pull those topics as closely together as possible so that you can run your 3 differentiated groups together and cover that same topic with them. So what we'll do is we'll quickly scroll down and we'll look at first at the teacher notes, because this is going to underpin everything we're going to be doing with our class for this topic of work. Now, some of the topics in Oxford Maths will run for 1 week. Some of them will run for 2 weeks. They're all suggested in the term planner as a suggested guide. We give you 9 weeks worth of content, giving you that week for interruptions like swimming lessons and sport carnivals and things like that. But that's not to say that you have to spend the amount of time that we've allocated. If it's a 2-week topic and your class all does very well in the pre-test, you might choose to cut it back to a week. So there is all of that flexibility here for you. So looking at the teacher notes, at the very beginning of the teacher notes, we'll give you a quick overview, pages 61 to 64 of the student book, and a quick little snapshot of what that student book page would look like so that you can reference that back. And you'll notice that we've got little icons next to each of the components of your lesson plan, just to break it up into the different components. So we'll start out with your learning focus. In this particular topic, we're going to be using fractions with number lines. So our learning focus would be to use number lines to count by unit fractions and compare the size of different fractions. We then break down the success criteria, so the things that I can do at the end of learning this topic. And here, of course, is where we'll have our Western Australian curriculum, and we'll pull out the curriculum link that's relative to this topic. And then all the materials that you're going to need. So the materials are going to be things that you have in the classroom. They're not going to be hard to find. things like dice, counters, matchsticks, pictures from magazines, things that you can easily get hold of. There might be occasional optional items like an abacus, but they're generally going to be things that you're going to have in the school. Any blackline masters or extension sheets will all be listed here as well, so you can plan ahead for what you're going to need for this topic of work. And then moving on, we've got the potential difficulties. So Louise mentioned some of the topics will come with a video that's teacher-centred, giving you some suggestions around how to teach around those potential difficulties that your students will have. So there's a handful of topics in each book that have those videos, but they will all have these bullet points that are provided, just giving you some practical strategies to help your students overcome those common misunderstandings or difficulties that they would have with a particular topic. And then lastly, before we move into our actual teaching sequence, is the daily practice activity. Now, the daily practice activity is provided for each topic in the book. And the idea of these is that they reinforce what you're teaching in this particular topic. So they don't necessarily need to be part of your lesson, but they could be something that you did at any point in the day. Maybe you were running early for lunch, or maybe the class came back early from an art lesson. You can grab one of these daily practice activities and just reinforce what we've been learning in maths. They can also be useful for daily review. So it might be a matter of two or three terms later in the year, you might be drawing back on some of these topics and using these as part of your daily review to revisit topics that you taught previously. One thing I will just mention is these time markers here. We won't be including time markers in the WA edition, mainly because Oxford Maths is very much around deciding on how much time you think you need with a topic. So we may provide some suggested timers, but we won't be as specific as to say how long each component will take in your lesson. So here we are at session 1. Now you'll note in Oxford Maths, we don't call each component of the teaching a lesson. We refer to it as a session. Now, some topics will be 4 sessions, some will be 5, and for the younger years like pre-primary, sometimes they can stretch out to even more than that. But the idea of sessions is they're components of your teaching. We always start with a pre-test at session 1, and we finish with a post-test at the last session. But a session isn't necessarily a lesson. In this case, we're in a year 3 class. It wouldn't be expected that an 8-question pre-test would take a whole lesson for your class. So this might be something that you would implement the week before, maybe on a Friday for 15 minutes. Or perhaps you might like to look at the term planner and select a cluster of, say, 4 or 5 pre-tests and do them all together to inform how much time you might need to spend on those topics, depending on your student results. So we call that session 1, where we're determining the ability groups of our class so that we can split them into the below level, on level, and above level that Louise mentioned earlier. Because the focus of Oxford Maths is ensuring that every student in the class is met at their point of need. And while one student might be in a support group for one topic, they may very well be at an at level or an extension or an above level group for another topic. So we're just ensuring that they're always placed at that point of need. They'll work their way through the student book, but we'll ensure that they get the support or the extension that they need for that given topic. So with the pre-assessment, Louise mentioned that you have the option of the print pre-test or the online pre-test. So just pulling up quickly as a reference, here we have our print pre-test, and we can see that the first 2 questions are below, they're at standard content from the prior year, and then we've got at standard content from the current year level. So we're using this as a guide as to, do we think our students are ready to work at the expected level, or are they going to need to be supported further? Or are they perhaps already grasping at standard content and needing to be extended? And from that, we would work out our 3 ability groups. Now we have the option, of course, of doing the digital pretest, which we can see here with a different symbol next to it. Now these pretests need to be assigned to your class. It's not something that they would be able to access by logging into their student dashboard. You would assign this task to your student, as can be done with all of these other tiles. We can see the little squares. There's a symbol of an eye with a line through it, denoting that the student doesn't currently have access to these, but they can be assigned. Other items like your teacher dashboard notes, your teacher notes, they have the line circle with a line through, meaning that they can't be assigned. So to assign a pretest, we'll have a quick look at assigning and doing one of these online pretests just to get an idea of what the online assessment looks like. And then we'll unpack the teacher notes quickly to get a bit of an idea of what a topic of work looks like in Oxford Maths. So we simply select the resource we would like to assign. We can select all if we like. And then we just go through and we set our start date. We can set no expiry, or we can give it an end date that it's due by. We go apply. Following by that, we move down, we select our class. Now here we can either assign to the whole class, or we can separate it down into groups of students that we can set up, or we can individually select individual students or small numbers of students to assign to. So perhaps for an extension quiz, you would be assigning to your extension students only, but in the case of a pretest, you'd be assigning to your whole class. So let's say apply. We'll get a quick summary of our start and end date, quick summary of everybody that's been assigned this task, and then we just need to give it a name. So we can call it fractions on number lines pre-test, and then we can give it a bit of a description if we like. So we could say pre-test for this week. You don't have to submit a note with it, but you certainly can, and then confirm and send. So that will now deliver to everybody in the class. They'll all have access to the pre-test. Now we can jump up to the top in our assigned work panel here, and this is where we'll be able to see the work we've assigned. So we just select our class, and we can see what Louise was showing in a previous slide. We can filter according to what's starting first or when it's due, and we can also sort from soonest to latest as well. So here's the one that I've just assigned now. You can see that a few students have already completed this task because I have assigned it previously. But by hovering over the green tile, I can see those 4 students that have done it. I can see the 11 that still need to do it. And I've got a quick summary here of the start date and the due date of when that's going to need to be complete. And I'll also be able to pull up a little summary page here, the task I've assigned, the students with the little ticks that have completed it, and then also my details on what I've sent and what note I've assigned with it. So let's just quickly jump in as a student, and we'll log in as a student quickly, and we'll see what the student experiences when they jump in. Students sign in with a student login card where they get assigned a number, colour and an image. So it's a nice and easy sign up process. A class login can be set too so that all students share the same number, colour and image when they log in. When they log in, they will receive this at the top of the screen. All they need to do is click on the task, and they can go straight to the pretest that I've just assigned. And then they're away and doing the task. So there's no sending them into the dashboard and having to hunt around to try and find the topic that they need to do. It's nice and easy. Now, Louise mentioned that there are a variety of question types that are embedded. So within the pre-tests and the post-tests, in instances such as this one, they can use either the calculator tool on the screen or they can use the keyboard on their computer, and they can work their way through filling in the numbers. In some of the question types, they might have questions where they have to click to move things into appropriate orders or into the correct places. And then some of them will be multiple choice. So there's a range of question types that can be answered. I'll just quickly navigate through this test. You'll notice the top that the timer will start to run, and it'll give the student and the teacher feedback on how long this test has actually taken to complete. And every test will have 8 questions. Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to do a quick. So now is an example where we have to type an answer into the box. How many fifths are in 1? How many eighths are in 1? And now the student can go through, they can select each individual question and check that they're happy with their responses. They can save their progress and come back at a later time, or once they're happy with everything that they've done, they can submit finish. It will track their score, give them final feedback on what they've got right and wrong. And by hovering over the boxes here, you can see that it's giving them a summary of correct, incorrect, or if they've unattempted questions, they'll get feedback on that also. Okay, now they also get the opportunity to come in and have a look at what they'd answered for each question, and they can see the ones that were incorrect in red and those that were correct in green. They can go into each question and analyse what they've done as a review. And you can see here the mark out of 8 and the percentage score. So the same approach will apply for the post-tests, and also they've got the online assessments for the quizzes as well. I believe the quizzes are all multiple choice questions. And then obviously the quizzes are designed as a practice test to track on how you're progressing through the topic. So when the student closes out, they can now go into their main dashboard, and this will just keep a little track of all of the things that they've been assigned along the way. When the student goes into the read part of their book, you will notice that the only resources that they have access to are the ClickView videos. So every topic will have a ClickView video automatically available, and the student book. Any other tasks like the Blackline Masters or the assessments and so on all need to be assigned by the teacher. So they can all be completed at the time that you want them to be completed. Okay, so jumping back into our lesson notes, we will have now been able to capture the groupings of our students. So if we jump into the reports area and we load our class, this is the area that we can track progress as we move through. Each of our units can expand. So I would expand our fractions unit into each of the subtopics. And I can see that for fractions on number lines, here's Kate, and she's been placed into the above level group. She scored 6 out of 8 and only got those last 2 questions wrong. So Kate's going to be working at an above level. She'll be working through the book and having additional extension tasks that will be assigned to her. Now, as a teacher, I can open her test and view her results. And if I wanted to retest her, I could hit this reset the test. That would make Kate need to retake the test and the group would be redetermined. Now, we'll go into some of the other views in the tracker as we progress, but that just gives you a bit of an idea of how we're going to utilise this. You can see here the scores that Louise mentioned. We can filter, so we can look at who our below level students are, perhaps who's working above level and who's working on level. And that can be really useful just to get a quick snapshot across each unit or topic of how your class is performing. And then as we're moving through and we're starting to assign our group leveled quizzes, we'll be able to utilise this to make sure that we're giving our on-level students the quiz, and we'll be able to assign it to, in this instance, those couple of students. Okay, so going back into our lesson plan, the first teaching component of a topic will be what we call the topic introduction. So what happens is we start with an interactive activity. So this will be found on your teacher dashboard. And this will be a simple digital activity that we share onto the screen for the students to complete. Now, the students can do these on their own devices, or they could be done from front of class. As you can see, some of these questions are a little bit similar to the test that we've just completed, but you'll have instructions on what to do with this interactive tool. And in this particular one, we're going to select the appropriate positions that the fractions would belong. So this could be bringing students out to the front of class and having them come out one by one. It could be working in pairs. We can check our answers and get feedback. We can reset and try again. And we also get the option to change through and have different examples that the students can have a go at as well. So that's a nice little gentle icebreaker introduction to the topic. And then we move into our introductory activity. So as a class, our students will typically work in mixed ability pairs, and we will introduce the topic as a class. There'll be lots of explicit instruction here about what we're going to do. Once we've introduced the activity, we then have our breakdown of what our on-level group will do, what our below-level group will be doing, and what our above-level group will be doing. Now, what happens here is, as it's our first teaching day, we will work with the below-level group to give them a really strong start. And you can see here that there's a very detailed list of teaching that you're going to be doing. There's going to be lots of hands-on learning here. And in a fractions topic, it could be that in the introduction to fractions, they might be building fractions by folding paper into shapes, or into the number of quarters that it needs to be. The lesson plan will break down what you're going to do. In this instance, there's also a Blackline Master that will be used to support. And you can see all the resources that are needed for the group are also listed on the side as well. So what will happen is you would work with that below level group and get them started, and then it will prompt them to the pages that they will be completing in their student book. and using those concrete materials to assist them with that. Meanwhile, your on-level group would be working through, in this case, guided and independent practice, and they'd have an early finishing task. And your extension group would also be working on some suggested pages in the book, and they would be going beyond the book into an extension task. And these are found in these activity sheet tiles. You get two versions of these, one which has editable drawing tools, which can be really useful to actually be able to draw and highlight. You can choose the pen size. You can use different highlighting tools. These are going to be designed in often they will teach them about cross-curricular topics as well. There's some where they learn about sports cars or number of daylight hours in different countries. They learn about toy factories or the histories of toys and chocolate. So these are really designed to be highly engaging and cross-curricular and to extend them horizontally beyond the book. So as we move on, we would move on to our next session, which would be our instruction and consolidation. You'll have another whole class teaching component, and then we break out into our groups again. And in this next session, the teacher would work with the on-level group, making sure that they get some targeted support. Meanwhile, each group would be directed to their pages in their student book. The extension group will continue doing their extension tasks. Support group will continue to be supported by the teacher using more hands-on materials. And probably at around this time, you'd look at doing the quiz to just see how the students are tracking. The support quiz, the below level quiz, the on level quiz, and the above level quiz, just to get some feedback on how your students are progressing in this topic, and whether you perhaps need to change the groups they're working in to make sure they're getting met adequately for their point of need. So we work through the topic in this way, and then depending on how many sessions there are, we will keep rotating in those groups with whole class instruction at the start. And then we will get to the end, which will be our post-test, where we'll be measuring growth. And at this post-test, this is the stage where we have our A to E grading guide, which ensures that all students are graded with the same grading approach, with a weighting allocated to each grading of A to E. Just before we jump into the reports quickly and then open up for questions, I will just mention that in the resources along the side of the screen, this is where you would also access your Oxford Maths Ready, which Louise explained to us was a tool for those students that perhaps aren't even ready to be at a support group that might need priming. And you can use these, it's a whole series of additional lesson plans to get students ready to join in with that topic. And it introduces key language, it activates prior knowledge, and just gives them lots of gradual hands-on learning experiences so that they're ready to join the rest of the class. We also have mastery tasks available for some of the topics, a little bit like the extension tasks, very cross-curricular, and they allow students to explore the topic in a more cross-curricular approach or real-world approach. So if we just quickly go into the grading guide, we'll have a very quick look at what our post-assessment grading guide looks like. Here we are in our main resource screen. This is where you can filter and look for any particular resources. You can single it out and look for single resources that you might need. But we can look at our post-assessment grading guide, and this is where we will see there's a description on the first page of how the assessments are intended to be implemented. And then we move on into the weighting of the post-test, because what happens in the post-test is each pair of questions gets progressively more difficult, and each pair of questions has a greater weighting allocated to it for the scoring, with a total mark out of 20. And as Louise mentioned, questions 7 and 8 are those stretch questions, which equate to 8 marks out of 20 in total. And this is where we can determine our A grade students down to our E grade students following the criteria that's set out here. So just jumping very quickly back into the reports area. We looked very briefly at the pre-test report, but let's just have a quick look at some of the bigger level picture we can get to. So looking at the fractions topic, we would have, prior to teaching the number lines topic today, we would have taught fractions as an introductory topic. So we can see our pre-test and post-test scores in this view for each of those fraction topics. But what we can then do is zoom into a particular topic level. And now at a class level, I can open up the view here to see what the scores were across the whole class, not just the individual student score. Here I can see questions 1 to 8 across the whole class, and I can see in green the students that got their individual questions correct, and I can see in red those that were getting those questions wrong. And this is really going to inform your teaching to, at a really quick glance, determine where the strengths and weaknesses are in that topic and inform your teaching. So you'll get these results for your pre-test, quiz and post-tests that you'll be able to use to inform your teaching. As Louise also mentioned, you can pull these out into a CSV report, which will give you that data in an Excel spreadsheet format. And there is also the ability to create custom test trackers in here, so you can import your own test results to keep track of any of your own assessments that you may have been conducting in class. So that's a very quick look at Oxford Maths in terms of what's involved in the digital and the teacher and the student resources. What I'll just do is I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll just jump back into the slideshow if we could.
Thanks, Graham. That was fantastic. Loads of detail. Yeah, really comprehensive. I think next we have, a little bit of information on release dates, if you want to speak to that.
Yes, so we're very excited to have our digital samples of the student books being ready this term. So we'll keep you updated as they become available so that we can share those with you. Coming into term 4, our print books will become available by the end of the year. We'll have those print books available. And then the digital dashboard, as I mentioned, I'm demonstrating today from the New South Wales dashboard. We will be having the WA dashboard going live in term 4, and we'll be slowly building on that. It will all be functional ready for the start of next year. What we do have right now, though, if you're interested in having a bit of a play with what I've been showing today, we have got the digital sample, which is available for pre-primary and year 4, where you can see a sample of work and have a bit of an explore of how it all looks. As far as pricing goes, the value packs, which are the student book and the assessment book, they come packaged together, $32.95 per value pack. And then for schools that book list or purchase class sets, the online teacher dashboard and student dashboards are included as part of that purchase. So if your school purchases or book lists pre-primary to year 6, all staff will get access to all of those year levels. If, for example, you buy year 3 to 6, you will get access to the year 3 to 6 books, and then you'll be able to allocate the appropriate levels to your students. And we just made a note here that we do also have digital subscription options. So if your school is looking at a digital only option, you can buy a digital teacher dashboard on its own, or you can also buy digital student licenses on their own, where the teacher then also gets access. That's in the case where you didn't want a student book. And we always provide free implementation sessions to help you onboard and get set up to use Oxford Maths. And we also run refresher training sessions throughout the year as well, just to make sure that if you have new staff, you can get top-up training and make sure that everyone's trained and using it as it needs to be.
Thanks, Graham. And you can tell from Louise and Graham's presentation that their staff support is second to none, so highly recommend. We did have some questions throughout the presentations. I know I've answered a few, and I think Louise has been keeping an eye on them as well. Louise, did you want to just switch on your camera and microphone and talk to any of the questions that kind of came up more than once or twice?
Yeah, thanks, Emma. I think there's a few of you that are existing Oxford Maths users in this session as well. So there are a few questions just with respect to the changes. So just to clarify that some of the things we've talking about are new for next year. So for instance, the capacity to assign resources and the click view videos will be new for 2026. So you won't see those just yet. And then I think there was also a question about the pre-test. I think Emma's already answered this one, but just for clarity for everybody, this year the pre-test is an adaptive test, but next year it won't be. So it'll be a full 8-question pre-test next year. And also there was a question about manually keying in results. So for those of you who are perhaps preferring to use the paper versions of the tests rather than the online, in terms of being able to manually key in results, it will be a little bit different next year. The existing panel of results will not be able to be edited next year, but you will have the option to create an extra column and manually key in your results to that column. So it'll be just a very quick extra step just to manually create a column to enter in those results. So that was probably just the key changes for those that are already using the program. I think, was there a question about the practice and mastery books as well? Did I see that?
I thought I saw one about a digital version of the practice and mastery books, but as yet, no digital version of those books. But we are looking to develop some new mentals books over the next 12, 18 months to go with the program. So that is a watch this space. The other sort of watch this space question that came up a couple of times was read to me functionality in our quizzes and tests. And yes, we are working on that functionality. I can't give you a date yet for when that will be ready. It's in development. So I don't want to promise anything that might change, but yes, we are working on that functionality.
I can see a question there about the practice and mastery books. Will they be linked to SCASA? Or linked to the curriculum?
Okay, so at the moment, the practice and mastery books follow the same content structure as the current edition of Oxford Maths, which is the AAC edition. So as we move into this WA specific edition, we'll be looking in the first instance to try and do a correlation chart for you so that you can still use those books with the new curriculum and with the new OMWA books. From that point on, then we'll be looking at refining the content to suit WA more closely. So I hope that answers that question.
Thanks. And there's just a couple more questions I might cover off quickly. One is, what is the cost for digital subscriptions? So we're just finalising the costing for digital subscriptions next year, but just to clarify, you do have the option of either a book-based program with the digital resources, or some schools do just subscribe to the digital resources, and you can also have a blended solution for your school. So there is some flexibility around that, but we will be able to follow up with you after the session to just clarify the costing for you as well. So watch this space on that one. And then someone asking for samples of each year level. So we will have those in the next few weeks, and we'll be able to follow up with you and get you that material to have a look at.
Yeah, and I think something just popped up about books for WA K to 6. So yeah, it'll be WA P to 6, P for pre-primary, and those student books will be coming through later this year as Graham outlined. I think that almost takes us through to the end of our time limit. So thank you very much for joining us. Hot off the press, we will be attending MAWA in November, and our Oxford Maths author Brian Murray and myself will be giving a presentation around our mastery tasks and engagement and enrichment through our mastery tasks. So hopefully we can see some of you there. In the meantime, please contact Graham and or Louise for any more information on the new curriculum and implementing it with our Oxford Maths for Western Australia. Thanks very much, everybody.